morning, Justice. And
Good
Rose.
morning. Sis. How are you doing?
I'm good. Rose looks like she's having a Monday.
She sure is. I try to kind of put her out and do this professionally and on my own, but she is so sad and demands to be held. And look at her. How can I say no?
Well, you could, but then you'd be an evil pet owner.
I know, like that's not right. She's so small and so dumb, and she doesn't know anything. So I'll just hold on to her. She's all right.
Yep. But if she barks,
Have a good weekend.
Yeah. It was all right. It was my grandmother's 94th birthday. Yeah, yesterday.
Right on.
So we went out and visited my grandma, and she's still pretty quick. 94 years old, man. There were a few little jokes she threw out at us, and I was kind of laughing about it. Of course, she always jokes about how much facial hair I have, and she hates it. Would you just shave that stuff off your face and that sort of stuff? But she was happy to see that I had a haircut. As grandmothers are.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that was kind of yesterday, and we actually we drove around Leamington a little bit and checked out. They've been building up this stuff along Seacliff Park and stuff like that, and there's also the new like reservation and stuff that's kind of out there where they got that the new restaurant that's going to be opening up out with native food. So we're kind of tooling around checking that stuff out, and stopped by Dairy Freeze. I think we did a lot of really good Essex County things, and a little hint out. If anybody likes, have you been to Dairy Freeze, Justice?
Oh man, so when I first started doing stand-up comedy in Windsor, my finale, my crowd pleaser was a joke about Dairy Freeze, actually. And yeah, I've been. It's
Okay.
good. It's the only thing to do in Windsor, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow, Justice is on a roll this morning. So, if you're heading out there, the line is ridiculous, right? Because everybody, you have to line up. There was like an hour wait.
The only thing to do in Windsor, yeah, of course
It
it's
was an
ridiculous.
hour wait for food, but you can call ahead. So we called ahead. Our food was ready in 15 minutes. Walked up to a takeout window, took our takeout, and we were gone. And it was great. It took us like zero time. So that's going to be the way that we handle going out there more often, is calling ahead, ordering your food, and then filling yourself up on Boston coolers.
Yeah, sounds like a sweet weekend.
Oh,
So to start off the week, I'm sure the folks at home, if they can read, are fully aware
Oh
that
no,
we're going to be.
we've hidden it. We hid it. It's not there yet.
It's on the.
It's on the
though.
description. You're right.
So we're going live this morning with our friend Asaph. He's an artist that I've met a few times just out and about. But Syx, you actually have a couple of his pieces chilling in your house, yeah?
I do. Yes. And
Right on.
if I can, I'll see if I can open this drawer in front of me. I have some photos of them, so instead of yanking, actually maybe I'll pull them off the wall during our little video. Anyways, who is this video by, Justice? And we will get right into it.
Oh, isn't that? I don't remember. So it will be a surprise for both of us.
Case the Joint, and it is a song called The Bank, right? You hope. All right, here we go, Justice. Thank you.
No, I'm just saying, that's not going to work for us. All right, you ready to talk? Yeah.
I'm bored.
Oh, let's work something out here. 50-50, you're full of
I
shit.
said I'm bored. Is there like any music I can put on or something?
65-35 in our favor. Oh, the deal worked out a lot better last time.
Now
I'm saying we
this.
get 65%, you get 35.
Fucking Rubik's
We're the
Cube.
ones
Are
putting
you
our
kidding
ass
me?
on the line, dude. We're the
That's
ones
something for me to
working
do?
all this out. Dude, you're full of
Get
shit.
the fucking phone, dude. Give me something to do.
That's an $1,100 phone and a six-figure deal you just threw out the window, you stupid. You fucking stupid.
Number 40313.
Well, are you happy now?
Everybody be cool.
You
little hips just right. Hey girl, over here, come on over here, let me whisper in your ear. I wanna tell you all the things I do. I'll tell you things you won't believe I do. So finish that drink now, kiss me true, 'cause baby I'm coming home with you.
Well, that was a great way to start our morning. That's Case the Joint. And this is Asaph. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well.
So nice to see you this morning.
Thank you, you too.
All right, so I'm glad to see you. Glad to have you on. How have you been? How have you been sort of coping through pandemic? How has the last little while been for you?
You know what? Amazing to see both of you as well. Thank you for the invitation. This is a real honor to be on your show. I think the pandemic for me actually was just an opportunity to just find different ways of doing what I do, which is art, right? Which is painting and creating creating paintings, but finding new ways of finding clients and but it also goes back to my overall theory of anytime that there's a potential problem, I think those of us who are trying to be entrepreneurial, we need to find new ways of doing things. And so we started doing some live portraits and online giveaways, stuff like that. So it was good for us in terms of as far as the business. Yeah.
Crazy thing is you're not only trying to keep busy that way, but I mean, you just moved recently. So, there's probably been a little bit of shifting and upheaval. Is that all? I know because I got invited over for a little social distance barbecue, which was amazing, and thank you. So how has the move been, and kind of setting up in a new space? Do you have more room to work in this house? Or actually, sorry, you're in a studio. I apologize totally. That's right.
That's okay.
You're in that's
okay.
In the studio with Mike.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we did move homes recently. So I'm sitting in our new home in Walkerville, where I live with my girlfriend and business partner and my son. The move was smooth. It's been beautiful to live here in the neighborhood. We're close to shops, restaurants, etc. In fact, this move allowed me to decide not to work from home anymore. Although I'm sure that some people do, and that's fine. But for me, I have a studio where I paint, and I don't do any work at home anymore. As far as painting, I may do, I don't know what, some social media or something at home, but all my painting is done at the studio, which is about, it's just a few minutes away.
Yeah, let's talk just a little bit about this in the process, because, I'm in like photo studio purgatory. I have a little tiny studio here at my house, which was kind of a one-car garage. It's been redeveloped, I guess, and we're waiting to kind of move into show studios to have a little bit of a larger studio space to work with. But for the creatives that are out there, some of us probably, again, we don't have the options of having a studio. So a lot of us are working at home. Can you tell me kind of like how that shift has changed either your work or your mental state about your work? How does it change your process?
Well, I mean, of course, I worked from home for years, and I guess each one has its own unique challenges. But working from home for me meant that it was always time to work, and of course, being an overachiever, I feel that anyways. But and that's probably why I wanted to have a studio. Of course, one of the main reasons is because I do a lot of big canvases and I just needed the space. But having that separation from my personal life and work life is definitely a real plus. Because I do remember when I had my work at home that there was always like this little thread of underlying guilt or pressure that I should be working, no matter what else I was doing. And I couldn't shake it because there were the paintings. They needed to be done and I wasn't doing them. So it helped with that primarily, I think.
Yeah, I think the separation, it can help out. I lived in Vancouver for, I guess it was about 6 years in a work-live studio. So we had, 16-foot ceilings, storefront entrance, so I could have a gallery in the basement, and that's where the studio was as well. So I was working every time you got up. The computers were essentially there in the loft where my bed was. The studio stuff was downstairs, and that little underlying kind of like unease, like you feel like you're not utilizing the space or you're not utilizing your time right. You can't kick your feet up on the couch.
Yes.
So then moving the studio out of your out of home or being able to have your work in another location, do you find that it kind of helps to have that downtime and that space and time away from your work as well, to look at it differently?
Yes. So, sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was getting a call. I had to change my setting there. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. So, well, here's you know what? Like, it's actually very helpful to be able to go to the studio, even if I don't feel like working, and just being there is a little bit more productive or work themed than not going. Even if I show up and don't do actual work, as in make a painting, I might poke around the studio. I might tidy up. I might just put on an audio and start thinking about work, because my creative process involves a fair amount of just mulling things over. I'm working on a portrait right now, and I'm kind of like I'll do bits of it, and then I'll be like, oh, now what do I, like, because I always want to make it like more creative or more unique to that inner voice. and sometimes it means sitting there and staring at it for a half an hour, or looking at other photos or paintings from the internet, right? So just going into the studio I find very helpful. It feels like work time, even if I don't get actual painting work done. And then when I leave, I can say, you know what, work's done, and I'm going to do whatever else, right? Like, it could be anything else that's not work.
Justice, how do you feel about sitting in your studio / home all the time? I mean,
I'm tired of it now, and I kind of hate it. And like the fact that show is sort of opening back up, and sort of listening to Asaph, I feel very similarly, in that working from home, you don't get that, like, there's no like barrier. It just sort of is well, you could always be doing something, as he said. And so, like, once show opens up and once we're able to move back in there, I'll be, I think, more excited. I'm excited. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the painting that you pulled off your wall and is sitting right behind you.
Sure. Let's just preemptively, like, most of your subject matter is portraits. Am I correct in saying this? Or is
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, a big chunk for sure.
A big chunk. And are most of these now commissioned works? Because this is what we're going to talk about. But so
yeah, I do a lot of commissions for sure, and I think there's something, even just this morning after getting up and I had my coffee and the thought popped back into my head, like, where am I going with the art? And the direction I'm going is to be able to create portraits that are, of course, that look like the person that I've been able to do for a couple of years now. The likeness is on point, but unique enough that they have some kind of a character or just that creative, just where it satisfies my internal direction, regardless of whether it resonates with anyone else. I think that's primarily where I have to go, is the direction that I feel, I have to be creatively. And so what I've been doing to get there is actually just making a lot of portraits, right? So a lot of them are commissions, and then if I don't have enough commissions, I'll come up with something, So right now I'm making a portrait that it's for somebody's loved one who passed away. And I thought, this is a great way to honor that person. They were a friend of mine as well. And that gives me pretty much complete creative freedom. I get to really kind of let loose and paint it the way I want to, because I'm just doing it as a gift, right? Nobody can tell me that I should have done it differently. If it's a commission where I'm being paid, then there's, I have guardrails up. I can't just go crazy and do, I have like, 50% creativity.
Yeah, the creative freedom is totally different. We'll talk before we get too far away from this. So since Asaph does commissions, our first interaction was actually with the Drive magazine, when the Drive magazine did an article with you, and the really weird kind of shitty creative part of this is they're literally sending me to photograph and make a portrait of a person that makes amazing portraits on his own. So Asaph and I talked, and we thought this would be a really interesting thing, is if I went in and photographed Asaph and went into the studio, and I needed to get other studio stuff anyways, but we specifically made portraits that day that were lit in a certain way so that you would be able to kind of paint your own self-portrait and leave some of my photo behind and overlay it with yours. I think it was really successful. I was totally stoked. I mean, it was amazing to see something I produced kind of go a step further. And then that's kind of how this came up. I don't know exactly why. It was maybe my wife's birthday, or I think it ended up, they finally came around our anniversary. I don't even know when, but I wanted Asaph to kind of paint some portraits of our girls. So this is my daughter, Harmony, and I took a picture of both of my daughters, and then Asaph went and painted them. So this is one of them, and the other is behind it. Now, I'm just going to do this since it's right here. Can everybody see that beautiful little texture in there? Like, that's what makes you kind of want to lick it. You kind of want to touch the paintings. And the depth is amazing. It was, again, really nice to be able to create a portrait of my girls and then to see you take that a step farther. So there's a little bit, I guess, behind the way the commission work, or the way that portrait works, but you don't necessarily work from professional photos all the time, right? So you have to...
Well, okay, I'm super glad you brought that up. I want to start working from professional photos from now on. I understand that's not always going to happen, because let's say somebody wants a picture of, whatever, their wife, and they want to give it for their birthday, and they're like, here, I've taken this photo, I really like it, paint that. Cool, awesome, I'll do it. But the ultimate, the peak of the mountain of like the creative work that I want to do is to get professional photos taken of the portraits, so that I have a little bit of, just a bit of creative control. I'd like to, get black and white photos taken, and then get that photograph, and then paint from that.
Yeah.
Because, well, that's just like it's a completely different process. I mean, it's high resolution. It's, I have creative control from beginning to end, and on top of it, we're creating a product from scratch, right? Then it's not like an existing photo that's like floating around out there somewhere. It's like we've created every part of it, and that to me is the purest or ultimate goal that I'm shooting for. And definitely if I'm doing a show where I'm putting my best foot forward, any portraits in that would have been photos that I had taken by someone like you, Syx, or another photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say that. So, here's something I'd like to do within the next 2 or 3 years. Some of you may know I was born and raised in a cult, which I escaped at 28 years old. So I was thinking of doing a series of portraits of former cult members, right? But these people live all over the world, so I'd have to get them to go and get professional photos taken if they live in, I don't know where, Houston or Australia, and then send those to me. But then I could generate a series of paintings based on those. That's the direction I want to go.
That's completely interesting.
Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to be seeing something like this. I like that when we mentioned, kind of that go-to thing, and you said you get into your studio, and if you don't have a commission, you'll start creating. And that was kind of the question that I was going to ask you, is like, but what is the go-to? Like, where, and I think that I'm not necessarily trying to put you on the spot, because this is something that I'm also thinking about in my career. Everything has shifted in my life. So, where are those go-to topics, subjects, emotions? And at times I have a difficult, creative block trying to figure out what that thing is or where that next step will be. So when you mentioned kind of where you grew up and your past, and then starting to create portraits, to me, this is like the flashbang. Like, this is what I want to see. This is part of Asaph that it intrigues me. It's there's a lot of curiosity in it, and to see those people, and then also out of those portraits, as soon as you create art, there's a story along with it. So you get to tell your story a lot more. They would also get to tell their story. So I hope that something like that kind of comes about. I give you my energy. Like, go for it. It's great.
Amazing. Thank you.
I think, like, one of the questions that we like to ask our guests is sort of on a day-to-day basis, especially now considering how sort of tumultuous things can be, how are you maintaining your mental health? Like, what is sort of a daily task that you look to keep yourself sane?
Well, you know what? Thanks for that question, and I'm so happy to answer it, because for years, I struggled with addiction, depression, anxiety, like high levels, to the point where I was certain I would never have a day without high anxiety in my life. The depression was so vast for years that I felt this was never going to end. And, gratefully, both of those things have ended, and, addiction is not destroying my life anymore. But I don't believe it's one thing. It's more like 100 little things. And that is kind of the thesis of what has brought me to some sanity overall. And I had to kind of probably amp those up during, the isolation. But they involve, it's like that saying that of Jim Rome. You know, he says, I think it's him. I don't know. I like quotes. They're all in my head, and they're
all over your body.
They're all like all over my body. Exactly. All my tattoos are all my favorite quotes. But you know, he talks about, and a lot of these you know, successful people talk about, you know, success is not that difficult. It's just a bunch of little things repeated over enough of a timeline. You know, and success and failure is very similar. They're not rapid events.
Yeah.
They don't just happen. And I would go ahead then and add mental health into that. And, you know, addiction could be considered an offshoot or branch of that. To me, it is. You know, so for me, having, you know, good mental health involves, you know, in order of priority, things like exercise, mission critical. I mean, and this is, you know, there's empirical evidence behind this too. You know, this is a non-disputed. There can be things that are debatable, but exercise, I think, is absolutely mission critical. Like if you're depressed, go for a walk, go for a run, like lift weights, like it doesn't matter. You know, that, and then finding coping mechanisms that are healthier than, you know, having a drink. Shower, bath, listening to music, picking up the phone, calling a friend, you know, going out for a non-drinking related hangout with a, you know, family member, like anyone, taking the dog for a walk. I mean, getting dressed up, like, can make you feel a lot better, right? So I get it that, you know, COVID annihilated some of these things, but I think it's about having a list that's long enough, where you can always pick out one or two things. Yeah, a lot of little things. Summarize.
This is great. That's great. I want to just touch back on a few things here that I think they're important to just give the information out. How old are you? When did you start painting? And now that you're kind of like, you know, feeling like you've kind of got a handle on things, at what point in your life did that kind of come up? I mean, these are kind of pretty key things. I'm at 47. Justice is younger, in her 20s, and you know, people go through different things at different times. So I mean, some of that timeline might be kind of helpful.
Yes, thanks for the question. So I escaped the cult at the age of 28. And that was 10 years ago. I'm 39 now. And I painted or drew my entire life because it was just that thing that I couldn't stop doing. But I jumped into it as a career full-time 3 years ago. I think it took me that long to figure out that I could actually do something for the rest of my life and enjoy it. You know, I had several misplaced attempts at starting careers that I was starting just for the sake of making lots of money, you know, and I started businesses, I imported things, I, you know, partnered up with whoever it was and did like a whole whackload of things, joined a couple multi-level marketing companies, you know, which there's nothing inherently wrong with. It's just what I didn't want to sell those supplements or whatever they were, you know, to people for the rest of my life. You know, and I think finally I came to one of the great realizations of life, which is do what you love and you'll eventually get good enough that you'll make money from it. You know, to me, it's a great truth. It took me 35 years to want to test that. And then, you know, after it was more, it's like 36, right? And then for the past 3 years that I've been doing it full time, it's only been able to support me very recently, you know, in the last like probably a couple months. And you know, it's definitely, it's a very satisfying place to get to. But yeah, do what you love, right? Do what you love, and I believe it will support you. And then quick sidebar. So that's what we're actually launching now. So September 1st, we are launching a mentorship program because it was such a tumultuous road for me to get from where, I love doing art, to where it's, now it's bringing in an income. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we thought that we would develop that into a bit of a course. Mm-hmm. So like it's a mentorship program. It's a 6-month long program for creatives, and we are going to be running that out of our studio, the Art Incubator. And that program will conclude with a solo show. But the goal is for me to be able to pass on what I've learned about making a living through art to students. And we already have our first student lined up, and we want to pass that on to 2 others, so 3 at a time. And
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. Okay, so you mentioned and this better be the last thing we do here. We got to kind of let our viewers go. You better give your some appreciation to the we. You now have a business partner, and your career has taken off, or it's changed in the last 3 months. So can you explain that very quickly?
So I started dating Kayla, my girlfriend now, and a wonderful woman, a real excellent addition, invaluable really to my life as a person. And after 2 or 3 months probably of dating, and realizing that both of us really kind of realized like she has this particular skill set with pretty much everything that I don't like doing, or really I'm just shit at doing. Yeah. Because I'm like, right brained. Yeah. Whichever one. And she's the other one. And so anyway, so after discussion and et cetera, so we decided to partner up in my business. And so she's handling social media, websites, finances, like all the the business, the technical and non-creative. Mind you, she gives advice on the creative side too, but she's handling all that businessy stuff. And I think that has really had a dramatic effect on the business. Yeah. It has really pushed it forward because why? Because these were all the areas that were floundering, right? They were kind of like I'd post when I felt like it, and we end up being artists. We end up being a little bit flighty with things. There's the binge and purge of creativity and even wanting to talk about it. And I just really wanted to tip my hat because, in life we sometimes need to partner up with people, and when I see things going really well, and then you talk about a mentorship program, given the other part of the we, because there's a big part of our lives that have to be the business, that have to be the finances, and we've got to learn that. Huge. And some of us aren't really taught that in university and through our art training. So thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time, and I always want to thank you for being as honest and as open as you are. I always look forward to our conversations. I can't wait to have more. My cats behind me are making a crazy noise. But yes, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for making artwork that sits on my wall and has literally given us, a great memory in life. Amazing. It was my pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to a lot more great conversations with both of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today.
All right. Take care.